96.9 KDLO Country. John Seiber, Mike Tanner joining us here as we get set to interview a country legend. And boy, Mike, one of the guys that we've listened to for years on the radio, Mr. Eddy Raven. Welcome to the show, Eddie.
Well, thank you, man. You're too kind.
You don't mind if we call you Eddie, do you?
No, that works for me real well.
How long have you been in country music, Eddie?
I think I wrote my first song when I was probably 11, maybe, and the reason I got my first guitar when I was like 7, and my dad was a guitar player, not for a living, but he did, and he was good at it, good blues player, and country blues, and wrote my first song when I was about 11 because I couldn't play anybody else's songs, so I figured I'd write something with whatever I knew to play. So, but probably I moved to Nashville in '81. Actually signed with A-Cup Rose. Signed with A-Cup Rose in '79, and moved to Nashville in '81. But from '79 on, I was at the professional level. I mean, I was up here with A-Cup Rose and signed with ABC in '74. But all my life, really, I mean, I was probably, how many years that is, plus put a band together. I had a band when I was like 12 years old that they let me sing in, so. But a long time. I've probably been in it at least 50 years, maybe even 55, probably closer to 60 years since I was a kid.
Now, were you born and raised all of your life there in Louisiana?
No, I was born in Lafayette, but my dad was from South Georgia, a little town called Cobbtown. Born and buried there, and I don't know if you've heard of Vidalia,
Yep.
The Vidalia onions, but that's a big deal down here, and that's that same area, about 8 miles from Vidalia, but by Metter, Georgia. And Archie Jordan's from Metter, and Archie wrote some of those Millsap songs,
Yep.
Almost Like a Song, and so he was from there too. And it's like he showed up one day at Tom Collins's music, where he wrote for. I think he wrote for Tom, and he introduced himself, and I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Oh, I'm from a little town in Georgia. You'd probably never know." And I said, "Well, maybe try me." And he said, "Metter?" I said, "Yeah, I went to school in Metter." He said, "Really?" And he said, "Well, I don't remember you there." I said, "Well, I think I won the only talent show I ever won was in Metter, and they gave me $3 silver for it." And he looked at me and he said, "Your brother's Gilbert." He said, "You taught me my first chords on a guitar." I said, "Really? Well, you ought to be paying back a little bit that now," because he became a really successful writer. And so I imagine I've probably been at it since for sure 60 years. And like I said, at a professional level, when I signed with A-Cup Rose in '69, September of '69. But I'd already had a bunch of songs recorded down in Louisiana. In 1965, I had a song recorded by a guy named Bobby Charles. Well, Bobby Charles was my hero coming up, lived down the road from me, and he'd had a lot of success in writing songs and recording. He recorded actually for the Chess record people up in Chicago, Leonard and Phil Chess. And you probably don't know the name, but Bobby Charles wrote "See You Later, Alligator."
Oh, yeah.
"This Time I'm Walking to New Orleans." "I Don't Know Why I Love You, But I Do. I'm Just a Jealous Kind." So I wrote a song that he recorded in '65, which kind of started things for me and became a big song down in Louisiana in that area, and sold probably over 200,000 copies. And we got a call a couple of years ago. Now, this is a copyright in '65. Since 1965, we got a call a couple of years ago, and they started asking questions. Was I the same guy that wrote this song called "Big Boys Cry"? And my wife says, "Yeah, that's with the same people." And who owns the song? Well, Eddie owns the song. Who owns the publishing? We own the publishing. Blah, blah, blah. And then she asked him, said, "Well, what's this all about?" I said, "Well, you didn't know?" I said, "No." I said, "Elvis Costello recorded the songs, released it worldwide." So, So, I mean, it's amazing how many songs that you write through the years and you don't think about it. But when I look back, I've written a lot of songs and still get a little bit of royalty on. I'm still getting royalties on the song I wrote in 1963. So,
wow.
I mean, it's living the dream, you know.
One of the songs, of course, Eddie, that you're most noted for writing would be "Thank God for Kids." Tell me a little bit about how the idea for that song came about, where you were at that time in your career, and how quickly it came together. When you wrote it, did you know you had a big hit on your hands?
I knew it was a good song, but I thought it was a little bit. Too simple, too easy to write. Came too quick, but as I got older and a little smarter, I realized those are the ones that are the best ones, the ones that come like that, because, you know, a higher power pushes the pen. You know, you can, if you're smart, you just hold it and listen to whatever, you know, that higher power that's telling you what to do or showing you what to do or just doing it for you. And I was coming back from a show. I was playing a show in Lawrence, South Carolina at the Rams Head Country Club. A friend of mine was a member there, and he used to come to the King of the Road in Nashville, which was Roger Miller's place in Nashville, and I played there on the roof, and they had decided they weren't going to keep us anymore on the roof, and so we left, and our first show after that was in South Carolina, and Johnny Duncan was there. He was playing right down the road, and he said, "Look, when I finish my show, I'll come back and we'll ride home together." And I said, "Okay." And so then there was my drummer was a guy named Terry McMillan, who was a harmonica player also, and he died a while back, but he was on one of the gospel Christian shows and played harmonica and was a pretty successful guy. But he was playing drums for me at the time, and so he rode back with us, and we pulled in. We stopped at a rest area in the Smokies, coming back in North Carolina section, and I'm there with Duncan, and we stopped, and there was this kid sliding down the hill, and I said, "Man, look those." Johnny looked at me and he said, "Man, look at those kids there. I used to have that kind of energy. I used to be able to do that all the time. Slide." I said, "Yeah, well, you probably still slide a little bit." He said, "Well, not like that." And I said, "Yeah, thank God for kids." And Johnny said, "That's a song. You need to write that." So I just put that title on the back of a Piggly Wiggly or a Winn-Dixie. I don't remember, grocery bag. I was writing the ideas down while I was going home, and then finally got back and decided to get on the song. And after that, it was like a 15-minute song. And what's really ironic about that was I was on ABC Records, and Don Gant was producing me, and Don was like my big brother. You know, he was the guy that signed me to Cuff Rose and signed me to ABC, and he discovered Jimmy Buffett and Amazing Rhythm Aces and Delbert McClinton and brought them on the label and everything, and got fired for all of that. Well, the big thing happened when I wanted to put out "Thank God for Kids" as a single in 1974 or probably 75, maybe 76, something like that. I was on ABC, and they said, "No, that ain't a hit song. Country music fans aren't interested in that kind of song, you know." And so I argued with them. Well, make a long story short, they threw me off the label, fired Don Gant, and brought somebody else in. And it took me like 9 years to get the Oak Ridge Boys to record it. And they recorded it in 5 weeks. It was gold. 10 weeks it was more than platinum. And the last numbers I got years ago on the sales of that song was 13 million. And since then, John Rich has recorded it, Kenny Chesney's recorded it, and numerous other people all across the world. And so it's been quite a copyright for me. But it's amazing that what anybody in the business, or anybody in any business, if you don't believe in yourself enough to fight for it, it ain't gonna happen. And the only thing that made that song work was persistence and writing about reality. And back then, there was not a whole lot of reality at our label, you know. And so I'm glad to have gotten away from there, and we went on to other things and had more success with other people and other places. So it's just crazy how it happens, but that was a huge, huge song for us. And actually, we have a Spanish version of it that hadn't been cut or released, but they're working on some things now. The publishing company is, and it could be huge all over again. And every year it's a big, big song. We get a lot of credit for that song through the years, and especially Christmas time. And a lot of people have cut it.
Are you going to be doing the Spanish version, Eddie?
No, maybe a little French, you know. Poquito de español, but and un petit peu de français, s'il vous plaît. But I probably ought to stick to the English version.
Hey, I want to ask you about some more of your songwriting exploits, and in particular, Don Gibson.
Yeah.
Don Gibson was a noted songwriter in his own rights, and he recorded a bunch of your songs, including Country Green, Dealing with the Devil, Send Me Some Sunshine. I mean, just fantastic songs. How did
Touch the Morning he did.
Yeah.
Every one day at a time. He did all kind of songs of mine. He was the guy. We were both at Acuff Rose, and it shocked me when they said that Don Gibson recorded Country Green. I mean, because I knew Don Gibson, and I knew what a great songwriter he was, and for him to have cut my song, Wesley Rose, who ran the label, called me, and he said, "Oh, I need to hear something." Right after they cut it, and he played it for me, and I listened to it. And I hadn't done the demo quite like Don did, but I was shocked that, and I knew it was a great track, and I knew it was really good, and I knew the sky was the limit after that with him, because he became a big fan and a guy that really spoke highly of me and gave me a lot of opportunity by recording my songs. He really did a great job, and I liked Don. I thought he was so unique, and he was in the session. I heard about this in the session when they were cutting Country Green, and Haggard was there in the session, and Don was trying to do Don Gibson on the song, which he did quite a bit, but he was going too far in some areas, according to Merle. Merle got him back and went out there and sat on the piano bench with him and said, "Look, you need to just sing it like the kid wrote it." He said, "Well, I'm, blah, blah." He said, "Well, if you don't cut it right like the kid wrote it, I'm going to cut it." So I talked to Merle later on about that story, because I'd heard that story from the very beginning, and he said, "Damn right." He said, "I was going to cut it. I knew that was a hit. I was trying to make him give up on it, but he didn't." It became a huge record, and then he cut "Touch the Morning" after that, and that became a huge record. Also, one of the most, probably one of the biggest records in Australia at that time. It was a huge record in Australia, which I didn't understand back then, but still is, and we still get a lot of. Sony owns all the music from all the publishing from Acuff Rose that I had, and they bought everything, bought Acuff Rose, and so they sent out some really thorough statements, and I see it, and it still amazes me that all the songs that I've written that have been played all over the world. I'm still that little kid from South Louisiana that doesn't understand what in the hell has happened.
Eddie, when you're out on stage, is there a favorite song on your list to perform, and maybe one that you're most proud of?
Well, we just talked about probably the "Thank God for Kids" would have to be definitely one or two, and the other one would have to be "I Got Mexico." That was Mexico was my first #1 record, actually, as an artist, and it was the first one that I owned the publishing on. I had put that in my new publishing company, and I actually co-produced the song, and the producer wasn't too sure about wanting to record it. It was Paul Worley, who's done Lady Antebellum now and since then, and I was his first #1 record, and I told him, I said, "Paul, I'm going to cut this one." He said, "Well, I kind of, but okay, yeah, but you sure?" I said, "Yeah, okay. Well, now we want to cut so and so." I said, "Oh, I'm going to cut this, and then we'll cut whatever the other song was too." But after we got into it, he said, "Yeah, this is good. This is a real good record." And so, yeah, that would be the one. And it's been a big, big song for us all over the world. As a matter of fact, I Got Mexico's been gold twice in Germany by a guy named Ebo, and they changed it, rewrote it a little bit, and they changed it to Ibiza after those islands over there. And the guy named Ebo did it, and it was gold twice. So, been a big, big piece for me. But I mean, songs are like kids, I mean, they all are a little different. You think of all of them just a little bit differently, and I've been very fortunate. Toby Keith's a big fan and a friend, and I travel with Toby, and I've got 2 songs on that Red Solo Cup album, a song called "South of You," and one called Club Zydeco Moon that he and I wrote. We wrote both of them together. and another one on an earlier album called That Don't Make Me a Bad Guy album, a song called Cabo San Lucas, which is done really well overseas in a lot of different places. His daughters actually cut it. So I'm a writer. That's really what I do, and I got 2 unreleased masters on Roy Orbison. That was a shock to everybody, and I just stumbled on it. I knew he was going to cut it, and I knew he was going to cut a couple of songs, but then it kind of got lost in the wash. And 1971, I wrote the songs. One was called Rita Joe, and the other one was called The Days That I Loved You. And so I'm looking through the box, looking for another song, and I see this 7.5-inch master copy of a song called The Days That I Love You, Roy Orbison. And I said, well, I knew you recorded it, but did it ever get released? And I didn't remember it being released, so I called Troy over at Sony, who owns publishing on all that stuff, and he said, no, Roy didn't cut that. I got your version. I said, no, I got a copy of it. He said, and I can't say on radio what he said, but it was, you're with me. And I said, no, I'm not. I don't do that when it talks about Roy Orbison cuts that hadn't been released after 20-something years or 30 years, whatever it was. And I said, I think there's a second one, too. And so he said, well, let me check. So he went and looked, and he said, well, we don't have the master. And he called back next day. He said, we don't have any masters on that. He said, are you sure? I said, Troy, I'm sure. I got it. He said, man, I said, well, who do you think owns it? He said, well, you got it. I guess you own it.
Wow.
I said, well, no, I'm not. No, it's owned by somebody else. I mean, I just own the song, and you own the publishing. So now I got a call from Alex Orbison, Roy's son, that's running everything after Roy died and his mom died, and he said he said, I'm glad you made me aware. Nobody was aware of it. They'd all forgotten about it, and the songs got lost. They got lost because the Acuff Rose, Wesley Rose managed Roy, and he was trying to get Roy off move him over. He had to finish up a contract, and to do that, you had to record X number of songs, and they cut some extra ones, is what they did. And my 2 songs got pushed aside, and so, I mean, for the greatest thing in the world, for that to happen to me was wonderful, and so they all forgot about it. Then they started digging into it, and Alex said, man, and he said, when you get back in town, I was in Texas, and he said, when you get back in town, we'll get together, and I did. And I said, I think there's another song, Alex, why don't you dig for? Sure enough, when I got back, he found the other song, Rita Joe, and he played it a little bit for me. And now they're working on trying to put that all together and release it. So I've been very fortunate with that. I got an unreleased song on George Jones, that we own publishing on. That's I mean, wow, I mean, how does that happen to you, It's just that higher power pushing the pen.
Well, all you're doing is just sitting here whetting our appetite to hear these songs, man.
Well, maybe y'all can play them up there and when they come out. But yeah, I'm just I'm excited about it. I just really, I've got a song that you know who Benny Binion was, that owned the Horseshoe Lounges and started the Horseshoe Lounges in Vegas and
I've heard
else.
The name, yeah. Yep.
Well, Benny was a friend of mine. I knew him in his later years, and Hank Jr., me, and Willie Nelson played his 80-something birthday party in Las Vegas at Thomas and Mack Arena, and I think there was like 19,000 people there, and unreal. It's supposed to be the largest birthday party ever. And so,
yeah,
I had written a song 2 years earlier for him at a surprise birthday party we did in Fort Worth for him, and the song was called The Cowboy Looks at 90. Well, I didn't think the song was finished. It just didn't feel right. And he loved the song and liked it. He called Haggard one day and said, "You hear that song I sent you?" He said, "What do you think about it?" He said, and Merle said, "Well, it's pretty good." He said, "Pretty good? It's damn good. You never wrote me one." So Benny, so when the birthday party, the big birthday party came, I played it again and did it. But then still wasn't happy with everything, and then he died. He died Christmas Day.
Yep.
And I got the phone call, and the minute I got the phone call, I knew how the song needed to end. And so I rewrote the last part, added a verse to it, rewrote it, and said, and changed the title to Jesus and the Cowboy. And there's some really big rumors, as a matter of fact, about them doing a movie on Benny, and we've got an inside track to that. I've talked to the author, the guy that wrote the book that sold the rights to him, and he's so I may see him this weekend too. So it's a lot of good things are happening. You know, I mean, I got a thing with there's a bluegrass group called Carolina Road, I think, with a lead singer named Lorraine Jordan, and they asked me would I do a song with her. She wanted to record a song, some different artists on her bluegrass album, and I said sure. And she wanted to do I Got Mexico, so we did that together and came off really good. And so they've already booked some shows. They want me to work with them on it, and she's done well in the business. And another girl named Lisa Matass out of New York, they came into town and basically the same thing, and they wanted to do the same song. I said, well, we've already done that with somebody else. I said, well, what do you recommend? What other song do you think you had? And I said, well, there's a song I wrote that was a big record for me that I think should be a duet. It never was a duet, and it should have been. She said, what was that? I said, Who Do You Know in California? And so we got in the studio and did that, and I said, what I suggest is I do the choruses, the verses, and you do the choruses, asking me the question, who do you know in California? What's she doing calling here, you know? And it came off terrific. And there's going to be, so the next year there's going to be some interesting things happening in two different fields that I don't know a darn thing about. They just threw me in the middle of it, and I said, okay.
Just show up and sing, huh?
Yeah, show up and sing and act like you know what you're writing about.
Hey, I've got to ask you, Eddie, how did you transition from songwriter over to singer? I mean, what was the transition like there for you, and how did that come about?
It was pretty simple for me because like I said earlier, I mean, I couldn't play everybody else's songs, so I had to write what I could play. And I signed with Acuff Rose as a writer.
Yep.
And Don Gant, who was working at Acuff Rose at the time, and like I said, what a great guy. I mean, he brought so much to Nashville, and he wanted to sign me as an artist. He said, well, Eddie, just hang in here, keep writing these songs. And he said, what was happening is they were pitching my songs to all these other people. Jeannie C. Riley did Good Morning Country Rain, and Connie Smith did I Don't Want to Talk It Over, and all these different things, bunch of songs, and they wanted to sign the guy, whoever was singing it, they wanted to sign him up. And Don said, well, no, he's not ready yet. So Don had the opportunity to take over ABC Records in Nashville, and he did. He said, look, just hold tight. I'm going to put you on the label, and I'm going to produce you, and we're going to have some hits. And sure enough, that's what happened. He just but I had bands, I was the lead singer in all the bands I worked with, but not on the level. When you get up here, it's like putting a Yankee uniform on, and when you're in the big league, you better deliver. But it was fairly simple because I'd done it all my life, and I was singing my songs. And when I didn't have enough songs to do a whole show, coming from South Louisiana, I could always fall back on the Cajun songs, and everybody liked that, so that was pretty easy. I could do that. But yeah, it was, again, it's just destiny, and it's just the higher power that pushes you where you need to be.
Eddie, how many dates a year are you doing these days? And after all these years of writing and recording and touring, is it still fun? What keeps you energized to want to stay out there and keep after it? Well,
I pick and choose the dates that I like. My booking agent is a guy named Rob Battle, great guy, and we were together in the busy days with Dan Wojak at Entertainment Artist. He was a Cub agent. He had just started, and he was having trouble with the other acts. And I told Dan, I said, "Look, put me with Rob and let me be his main guy." And we were pretty hot. Then we had a lot of hits going, and so this goes back to the early '80s. I mean, that we were together, and so he's my agent now, and he and I have a really good relationship, and he knows what I want to do and what I will do. And it was I probably do about actually recording dates about 40 a year. That doesn't count the writing. That doesn't count the songwriter things that I do with people. Frank Myers, played lead for me for all those years and 10 years, and he and I have written a lot of songs together. So we do songwriter shows, just him and I acoustically. And he wrote "I Swear," and he wrote "Just You and I," and he wrote "I'm Already There" for Lone Star, and Tomorrow for Chris Young. So he's got a lot of hits, and so we get out there together. And I mean, we're supposed to do like 60 or 70 minutes, and it's hard for us to do all those songs in that time. So, but I still do that. So I'm pretty busy, and but I'm at the point now that I pick and choose what I want to do, and that's good. I hate to miss any of the things because the business has been so good to me through the years, and I just feel that when you've been given the gift that I've been given, and you owe it, you got to use it. You can't, you just have to do it. And that's where I'm at. But I'm fortunate enough to be able to pick and choose the dates that I want to do,
Well,
still have the band, still have the bus, and but we fly mostly. Like, we're going to fly up your date.
That's what I was going to say. I know the South Dakota date next week from tomorrow was going to be a fly-in date. Why did you choose South Dakota?
Well, I was told about it by Gladys Van Dyke, who I do a lot of shows with. She and Rob work on a lot of dates, and Gladys and Leroy, what great people, and
fantastic.
She wanted me to do it, and I said, yeah, well, sure. So anything Gladys suggests or says, I'm willing to do if I can, and I'm looking forward to it. I really, that's not too far from Watertown, I don't think.
Nope, about 45 minutes right up the road. Yeah.
Yeah, I played that casino some years back on New Year's Eve when it was like minus 20-something degrees up there.
Well, now, strange you bring that up because back in the 80s, you were up in Fargo, North Dakota.
With Hank Jr.
You were up there. No, this was a supper club deal. And I'm going to.
Oh yeah. At a motel, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to test your memory because one of the guys that's opening up for you in the band Just Between Friends, they're the opening act. Mm-hmm. He was at that show, and he said that he got a chance to spend a lot of time with you and your lead guitar player that night, and he said you might remember. Said you might remember it because the lead guitar player, his wife had a baby in Nashville that night.
Well, it's Frank Myers. And I don't know, it might have been the bass player Frank Myers played lead for me. He's the guy I was talking about, the writer. And there was two guys in the band that had babies right about there. Frank was one of them, and Jack Cotton, the bass player, was the other one. So it could have been either one of them. But we played. It was a Holiday Inn, and we just put the band together. And it was that Holiday Inn, a dome kind of place with a pool inside, and we really wanted to beef up the band and we had brought in a new drummer, and everybody else was pretty used, but we brought in a new drummer, and so we were up there for a week actually, and a storm chased us out of there. We were leaving town, and the storm was right behind us. One side of the road was snow, and the other side no snow. But I remember that well, and that was neat. I enjoyed that, to sit down for a week in one place, and I actually won $500 there too in one of those lotteries where you buy a ticket. And I don't know if it was in Fargo or Moorhead, one of the two places. Right across, I think they were pretty close.
Yeah, just right across one another. Well, Eddie, right. I know that you're busy. You got some stuff to get done. We really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us this morning, man. We are so looking forward to this show on the 24th in Sisseton. This is going to be dynamite. This is going to be dynamite.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I've heard so many good things about the venue, and so that sounds really good. I'm looking forward to it, and actually before I think the 23rd, they've got the George Jones Museum that I'm going to do that before we leave. But I'm really looking forward to going to. Is it Sisseton? Is that how you pronounce it?
Sisseton, you bet.
Yeah, I've got lucked up on
that. Maybe you'll win some more when you come to town. Who knows?
Well, yeah, that wouldn't be bad at all. I wouldn't mind doing that. It was me, and I tell you, me and one of the guys, and they didn't want to buy the ticket. And I said, no, go ahead, you go first. I said, no, why don't you go? He said, no, go. So I went first and won the money, and he didn't win. So.
Sheila told us. Sheila told me, said, "Don't get him started talking too long, because he's full of stories."
Mm-hmm. Well, you're right. She's wanting me to hold everything for the book.
Well, maybe we'll have some more time to visit. Mike and I will both be around when you get in for the date, and we'll maybe we'll get a chance to do some more visiting there.
Well, I appreciate it, guys, and we will see you up there.
Good to talk to you. Look forward to the show. Going to be a great night.
It's going to be fun, And thanks a bunch. It maybe be a little warmer than the last time I was up in the area.
Well, we certainly hope so. Thanks, Eddie.
Well, good.
Safe
I will
travels.
see you all then. Thanks a bunch.
Safe travels, my friend. Thank you.
All right, bud. Bye-bye.
There's Eddy Raven, country music legend Eddy Raven on 96.9 KDLO Country. Mike, just an absolute dream to visit with.
Just a fun guy. Boy, what a great storyteller. The stories and all of the names that he's been associated with over the years. I mean, he's dropping names like Hank Jr., Haggard, Willie Nelson, George Jones, Don Gibson. It just goes on and on.
Well, and he mentioned Leroy Van Dyke and Gladys Van Dyke. And Gladys, I've know Gladys and Leroy both personally. And Gladys was one of the people when Leroy was here last year. Gladys said, was telling the guys, you've got to get Eddy Raven in. Mm-hmm. Eddy Raven is one guy that you got to get in. Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad she's telling him the same thing she's telling us.
Well, you heard him say, I've heard it's a great venue several times, so...
The tickets are on sale right now. You can find those around Sisseton. They're at Teal's Market, at K&K Convenience, at the Cottage Restaurant, and at Johnson Office Suites. That's down on Veterans Avenue in Sisseton. And in Watertown and Webster, they're at the Cynic C stores. Get those tickets for Eddy Raven. It's going to be a fun night. Just Between Friends will be the opening act. Eddy Raven will be closing out the show that night. And if you want some more ticket information, 605-742-4232. That's 742-4232. Don't miss your chance to see this guy in concert. It's going to be dynamite.
Going to be a great show.
Country music legend Eddy Raven.
7 #1 songs, 17 consecutive top 10s.
And he's coming to Sisseton Friday, April 24th.
Operator, operator, oh, let us shine, shine, shine. Step back and let that little girl shine, shine, shine. We raised a lot of hell, we made a lot of noise. Everybody knew we were fire boys.
Get ready for Eddy Raven, along with special guest Just Between Friends, April 24th at the Sisseton Performing Arts Center, 7 p.m. Tickets on sale now in Sisseton at Teal's Market, K&K Convenience Store, the Cottage Restaurant, Johnson Office Suites, and at Cynic C stores in Watertown and Webster.
A Cato Entertainment production.